For 12 years, a boy lived in complete silence. His billionaire father spent $40 million trying to help him. The world's best doctors said nothing could be done. Then a housekeeper who makes $1,500 a month did the impossible with a bobby pin. What she pulled out of his ear made everyone in the room gasp, and 3 words changed everything. But this isn't just a story about healing. It's about the lie that almost destroyed a child's life. Watch until the end, because this will change how you see the world. Welcome to Penthouse Stories with Grandpa. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and share your thoughts on the story, as well as where you are watching from. Let me tell you a story that will remind you why kindness matters more than anything money can buy. In the heart of Dubai, where skyscrapers touch the clouds and luxury knows no limits, there stood a penthouse that could make kings jealous. This was the home of Vincent Harrington, a billionaire whose name appeared in Forbes magazine every year. His wealth came from technology, from creating apps and systems that half the world used every single day. But here's what most people didn't know. Behind those golden gates and marble floors lived a pain that no amount of money could fix. Vincent had a son named Oliver, a beautiful boy with bright eyes and sandy hair. He was 12 years old, but he had never heard a single sound in his entire life. Not his father's voice. Not the birds singing outside his window. Not even his own laughter. Oliver was born deaf. For 12 long years, Vincent spent millions trying to change that. He flew Oliver to specialists in Switzerland, to clinics in America, to research centers in Japan. Every doctor made the same promise. We'll do our best. And every time, they came home with nothing but silence. The penthouse became a place where people whispered. The staff moved like shadows, afraid to make noise, afraid to disturb the boy who couldn't hear them anyway. It felt like the whole house was holding its breath, waiting for something that would never come. Vincent stopped smiling years ago. His face became hard, like stone. He buried himself in work, in meetings, in numbers that made sense when nothing else did. He loved his son more than life itself, but every time he looked at Oliver, all he saw was his own failure. People called Vincent brilliant. They called him powerful. But he couldn't help the one person who mattered most. Now let me tell you about someone else. Someone the world would never put on a magazine cover, but someone whose heart was worth more than all of Vincent's billions. Her name was Rosa Martinez. Rosa came from a small village in the Philippines. She was 30 years old, with kind eyes and hands that were always busy. She had come to Dubai 3 months ago, looking for work to send money back to her sick mother. She got a job as a housekeeper in Vincent's penthouse. Rosa was quiet, respectful, always on time. She cleaned every room until it sparkled. She never complained, never gossiped with the other staff. But beneath her calm face lived a story that shaped everything she did. You see, Rosa once had a younger sister named Lily. When Lily was 7, she got a terrible ear infection. Their family was too poor to afford proper treatment. Rosa watched helplessly as her sister suffered, as the infection spread, as Lily slowly lost her hearing. Rosa was only 15 then. She held Lily's hand every night, promising her that everything would be okay. But it wasn't okay. 6 months later, Lily passed away. The infection had gone too deep. Rosa never forgot that feeling. The helplessness. The guilt. The wish that someone, anyone, had cared enough to look closer. So when Rosa first saw Oliver sitting alone in the massive living room, staring out at the city lights in complete silence, something inside her chest tightened. She saw Lily in him. She saw a child who deserved to be heard, to be understood, to be more than his disability. The other housekeepers warned her. Don't get involved, they said. Mr. Harrington doesn't like staff getting close to his son. Do your job and stay invisible. But Rosa couldn't do that. She couldn't be invisible when a child needed someone to see him. She started small. When she cleaned Oliver's room, she would smile at him. He never smiled back at first, but she kept trying. She would leave little drawings on his desk, simple pictures of flowers or smiley faces. One day, she found one of her drawings pinned to his wall. Slowly, very slowly, Oliver began to trust her. When she entered a room, he would look up. When she waved, he would wave back. She learned basic sign language from YouTube videos late at night, practicing in her tiny room until her hands got it right. Oliver taught her signs too. They created their own language, one that didn't need sound. For the first time in years, the boy smiled. Really smiled. And when Vincent saw his son laughing silently at something Rosa had signed, something shifted in his chest. But he pushed it away. He had learned not to hope anymore. Then one morning, Rosa noticed something. Oliver kept touching his right ear. Not just once or twice, but constantly. He would press his palm against it, tilt his head, squeeze his eyes shut like he was in pain. Rosa watched him carefully for 3 days. The other staff didn't notice. They were too busy with their tasks. But Rosa saw. And what she saw worried her deeply. On the 3rd evening, while everyone was preparing dinner, Rosa found Oliver sitting on the balcony alone. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. But Oliver wasn't looking at the sunset. He was holding his ear, his small face twisted in discomfort. Rosa knelt beside him and gently touched his shoulder. She signed, "Does it hurt?" Oliver nodded, his eyes filling with tears. Rosa's heart began to race. She had seen this before. Years ago, with Lily. The constant touching. The pain. The way something invisible was hiding inside, hurting where no one could see. She leaned closer, turning Oliver's head carefully toward the light. She looked into his ear, squinting, trying to see. And there, deep inside, she saw something that made her blood run cold. Something dark. Something that glistened. Something that moved. Rosa's hands began to shake. She didn't know what it was, but every instinct in her body screamed that this was important. This was the answer everyone had been missing. But how could she tell Vincent? A billionaire who had consulted the world's best doctors? How could a housekeeper from a tiny village possibly know something they didn't? Still, she thought of Lily. And she knew she couldn't stay silent. Not this time. That night, Rosa couldn't sleep. She lay in her small room, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. The image of that dark thing inside Oliver's ear wouldn't leave her alone. It sat there in her memory, glistening and wrong. She had 2 choices. She could go to Vincent and tell him what she saw. But she already knew what would happen. He would think she was overstepping. He would remind her that dozens of specialists had examined Oliver. He might even fire her for interfering. Or she could stay quiet. Keep her head down. Do her job. But then Lily's face appeared in her mind. Her little sister, suffering in silence while everyone looked away. Rosa sat up in bed and whispered into the darkness, "I can't let another child suffer. Not when I can do something." The next morning, she watched Oliver closely. He was at the breakfast table, not eating, just pushing his food around his plate. Vincent was on his phone, barely noticing. The staff moved around them efficiently, professionally, but without really seeing. Oliver winced, pressing his hand to his ear again. That was it. Rosa made her decision. After breakfast, when Vincent had left for a business meeting and the other staff were busy in different parts of the penthouse, Rosa approached Oliver in his playroom. He was building something with blocks, but she could tell he wasn't focused. He kept stopping to touch his ear. Rosa knelt beside him and signed slowly, carefully. "Oliver, I need to look at your ear. I think there's something inside that shouldn't be there. Something that might be hurting you." Oliver's eyes went wide. He shook his head quickly and signed back, "No doctors. They hurt me. Tests hurt." Rosa's heart broke. She understood. Years of medical procedures, of being poked and scanned and examined like a problem to solve rather than a child to comfort. Of course he was scared. She signed again, "I'm not a doctor. I'm your friend. I'll be gentle. I promise. Just let me look." Oliver stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Rosa's hands trembled as she guided him to the window where the light was brightest. She asked him to tilt his head, and she looked carefully into his ear. There it was again, that dark shape, deeper than she first thought. It looked like it had been there for a long, long time. She took a deep breath. From her pocket, she pulled out a small bobby pin, the kind she used to hold her hair back. She had cleaned it carefully, boiled it in hot water that morning, just in case. "This might feel strange," she signed. "But I'll stop if it hurts." "Okay." Oliver nodded, squeezing his eyes shut. Rosa said a silent prayer. "God, please guide my hand. Please let me help him." She carefully inserted the bobby pin into Oliver's ear, her hand steady despite her racing heart. She could feel something soft and sticky. She hooked the pin gently and began to pull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then something moved. Something slid. And suddenly, it came free. Into her palm fell a dark, wet, round object. It was about the size of a small bean, black and slightly shiny. It twitched in her hand. Rosa gasped. It was some kind of insect. A beetle or a bug that had crawled into Oliver's ear years ago and had been living there, growing, blocking everything. Oliver's eyes flew open. He looked confused, then his hands shot to his ear. He touched it gingerly, Then his face changed. His mouth opened slightly. And then he whispered, so quietly Rosa almost missed it, "I hear something." Rosa froze. Her entire body went still. "What did you say?" Oliver's eyes filled with tears. His voice came out rough and broken, like an instrument that hadn't been played in years. "I hear something." The words were clumsy, awkward, but they were real. Rosa dropped the bobby pin. Tears streamed down her face. "Oh my God. Oh my God, Oliver, you can hear." Oliver looked around the room wildly. The sound of the air conditioning. The distant hum of traffic outside. The ticking of a clock on the wall. Sounds he had never experienced in his entire life suddenly flooded into his world. He covered his ears, overwhelmed, frightened by the newness of it all. Rosa pulled him into a hug. "It's okay. It's okay. Those are just sounds. They won't hurt you." Oliver clung to her, shaking. Then he pulled back and looked at her face. His lips moved, testing, trying. "Rosa." He had said her name. Rosa sobbed openly now, holding his face in her hands. "Yes. Yes, that's me. You said my name." Neither of them heard the door open. Neither of them saw Vincent standing in the doorway, his face pale, his briefcase dropped on the floor. "What is happening?" Vincent's voice came out low, dangerous. Rosa spun around, her eyes wide. Oliver jumped at the sound, another new noise crashing into his sensitive ears. Vincent stepped forward, his expression a mix of confusion and anger. "What did you do to my son?" Before Rosa could answer, Oliver turned to his father. His voice shaky, uncertain, but unmistakable, he said, "Dad." Vincent stopped breathing. The word hung in the air like something impossible, something sacred. "Dad," Oliver said again, louder this time. Vincent's legs nearly gave out. He grabbed the edge of a table to steady himself. That's my son's voice." Rosa stood up, still holding the small insect in her palm. "Mr. Harrington, I found this in his ear. I think it's been there for years. I think this is why he couldn't hear." Vincent looked at the bug, then at Rosa, then at Oliver. His mind couldn't process what was happening. 12 years. 12 years of specialists and scans and treatments. And a housekeeper had solved it in 5 minutes with a bobby pin? "You touched my son without permission," Vincent said, his voice rising. "You could have damaged his ear. You could have." "Dad, stop." Oliver's voice cut through the room. "She helped me. I can hear now. I can hear you." Vincent's anger collapsed. He stared at his son, this boy who had been silent for 12 years, now speaking, now hearing. He fell to his knees and pulled Oliver into his arms, holding him like he might disappear. "Say something else," Vincent whispered. "Please, say something else." Oliver smiled through his tears. "I love you, Dad." Vincent broke. Completely, utterly broke. He sobbed into his son's shoulder, all the pain and fear and helplessness of 12 years pouring out of him. Rosa stood quietly in the corner, watching them. She didn't need thanks. She didn't need recognition. Seeing Oliver speak, seeing him heard, that was enough. But then Vincent looked up at her, his eyes red and wet. "How did you know?" Rosa's voice was soft. "Because I've seen this kind of pain before. And this time, I refused to look away." The hours that followed felt like a dream, the kind where everything moves too fast and too slow at the same time. Vincent called his private medical team immediately. Within 30 minutes, 3 doctors arrived at the penthouse, carrying equipment, asking questions, examining Oliver with instruments and lights. Rosa stood in the corner of the room, her hands folded, watching quietly. She felt out of place among all these educated people in their expensive clothes, speaking medical terms she didn't understand. But every few minutes, Oliver would look over at her and smile. And that made everything worth it. The head doctor, a man named Dr. Patel, held the insect Rosa had removed. He examined it under a portable microscope, his face growing more serious with each passing second. Finally, he looked up at Vincent. "Mr. Harrington, this is a tropical beetle larva. It's been living in your son's ear canal for what I estimate to be 7 to 9 years. Vincent's face went white. 7 to 9 years. How is that possible? We've had him examined by specialists on 3 continents. Dr. Patel shifted uncomfortably. These larvae are extremely difficult to detect. They burrow deep and remain dormant most of the time. However, with the proper equipment and a thorough examination. He paused. It should have been found. Should have been found, Vincent repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Are you telling me that every doctor who examined my son missed this? Another doctor, a woman, spoke up nervously. Mr. Harrington, the ear canal examinations in your son's records were noted as complete. If they were done properly, this should have been discovered. Vincent's jaw clenched. If they were done properly. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. His voice was controlled, but Rosa could hear the fury underneath. I want every medical record from the past 10 years. Every scan, every report, every examination note. I want them on my desk by tonight. While Vincent made his calls, Dr. Patel approached Rosa. Miss Martinez, what made you look in his ear? Rosa felt nervous with all eyes suddenly on her. I noticed he kept touching it. He seemed to be in pain. I've seen that before, in my sister. She had an ear infection when we were children. And you removed the lava with a bobby pin. Rosa nodded, feeling embarrassed. I didn't have medical tools. I just wanted to help him. Dr. Patel's expression softened. You saved this boy's life. If that lava had continued growing, it could have caused permanent damage to his brain. What you did was incredibly brave. Rosa looked down. I just did what anyone should do. I paid attention. Those words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. That evening, Vincent's lawyers and medical advisors filled his office. Documents were spread across his desk, hundreds of pages of medical reports, bills, and examination notes. Vincent read through them with growing horror. His hands shook as he turned each page. One report, dated 8 years ago, showed an ear examination marked as complete and thorough. But the notes were vague, generic, copied and pasted from previous reports. It was clear no real examination had been done. Another report, from 5 years ago, recommended continued observation and regular checkups without any specific findings. The bill attached was for $50,000. Page after page revealed the same pattern. Generic notes. Expensive treatments that led nowhere. Recommendations for more appointments, more tests, more money. And at the bottom of several files, Vincent found something that made his blood boil. Internal memos between administrators discussing maintaining the Harrington account and ensuring continued revenue stream. They had known. They hadn't cured Oliver because a cured patient doesn't come back. A cured patient doesn't generate millions in ongoing treatment fees. Vincent stood up so fast his chair fell backward. They let my son suffer, he said quietly. For money. They let him live in silence for money. His lawyer spoke carefully. Mr. Harrington, this is serious medical negligence. We can build a strong case. But Vincent wasn't thinking about lawsuits. He was thinking about Oliver, sitting alone in examination rooms, scared and confused, while doctors who didn't care pretended to help him. He was thinking about all the nights he held his son while Oliver cried silent tears, wondering why he was different. He was thinking about Rosa, a housekeeper with no medical training, who had cared enough to actually look. To actually see. Vincent walked out of his office and found Rosa in the kitchen, helping prepare dinner like it was just another day. Rosa, he said quietly. She turned, wiping her hands on her apron. Yes, Mr. Harrington. I need to apologize to you. Rosa looked confused. Sir, you don't need to. Yes, I do. Vincent's voice cracked. I was so focused on finding the most expensive doctors, the most advanced treatments, that I forgot the most important thing. I forgot to really pay attention to my son. You've been here 3 months, and you saw what I couldn't see in 12 years. Rosa's eyes filled with tears. You love your son. That's what matters. Vincent shook his head. Love without attention is just empty words. You showed me that. A housekeeper from a small village taught a billionaire how to actually care. He pulled out an envelope from his pocket. This is for you. It's not payment. You can't pay someone for giving your child his life back. But I want you to send it to your mother. For her medical treatment. Rosa opened the envelope and gasped. Inside was a check for $500,000. Mr. Harrington, this is too much. I can't. Yes, you can. And there's more. I'm setting up a medical foundation. Free hearing treatment for children who can't afford it. Children like Oliver. Children like your sister. And I want you to help me run it. Rosa couldn't speak. She just stood there, tears streaming down her face. Vincent continued. Tomorrow, I'm holding a press conference. I'm going to tell the world what happened. How the medical system failed my son. How greed blinded people who were supposed to heal. And how you, with nothing but compassion and attention, succeeded where they all failed. Rosa wiped her eyes. I don't need recognition, sir. I just wanted Oliver to be okay. I know, Vincent said softly. That's exactly why the world needs to hear your story. Because real healing doesn't come from expensive machines or fancy degrees. It comes from people who actually care enough to look. That night, Oliver found Rosa on the balcony. He sat beside her, and for a few moments, they just listened to the sounds of the city together. The traffic, the wind, the distant music from somewhere below. Then Oliver said quietly, "Rosa, why did you help me when no one else did?" Rosa looked at him with gentle eyes. "Because I know what it's like to watch someone suffer and feel helpless. I couldn't save my sister. But I could help you. Sometimes, that's all we can do. Help the one person in front of us." Oliver leaned against her shoulder. "Thank you for seeing me." Rosa wrapped her arm around him. "Thank you for letting me." Above them, the stars shined bright over Dubai. And for the first time in 12 years, Oliver could hear the wind whisper through the night, carrying with it the promise of a new beginning. The next morning, the world woke up to a story no one expected. Vincent Harrington, the billionaire who rarely gave interviews, stood in front of cameras from every major news network. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a fire that everyone could see. Rosa stood in the back of the conference room, uncomfortable with all the attention. She had tried to stay home, but Vincent insisted. "The world needs to see you," he had said. "The world needs to know that heroes don't always wear white coats." Vincent began to speak, and the room fell silent. "For 12 years, my son Oliver lived in complete silence. He was born deaf, and I spent over $40 million trying to help him. I took him to the most famous hospitals in the world. I hired specialists whose names you would recognize. I believed that money could solve any problem." He paused, letting the weight of that number sink in. $40 million. But 3 days ago, a woman who earns $1,500 a month did what $40 million could not do. Her name is Rosa Martinez, and she's a housekeeper in my home. With a bobby pin and pure compassion, she removed a beetle larva from my son's ear that had been there for nearly a decade. Within minutes, my son could hear. Within an hour, he spoke his first words. The cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward, scribbling notes. Vincent's voice grew harder. "Yesterday, I reviewed every medical record from the past 10 years. What I found disgusts me. Multiple doctors failed to properly examine my son. Some copied previous reports without doing actual examinations. Others recommended endless treatments they knew wouldn't work because it kept the money flowing." He held up a stack of documents. "These are internal hospital communications discussing my son not as a patient, but as a revenue source. They kept him sick because a healthy child doesn't generate profit." The room erupted with questions. Vincent raised his hand for silence. "I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here to make a promise. Starting today, I'm launching the Oliver Foundation. We will provide completely free hearing examinations and treatment for any child who needs it, anywhere in the world. No insurance required. No payment necessary. Just real care from people who actually want to help." He turned and gestured to Rosa. "And leading this foundation will be Rosa Martinez, because she understands something that expensive education couldn't teach me. She understands that healing begins with actually paying attention." Rosa felt hundreds of eyes turn to her. She wanted to disappear, but Oliver was sitting in the front row, giving her a thumbs up and mouthing, "You can do it." She stepped forward to the microphone, her hands shaking. "I'm not good with speeches," she began, her accent thick, her voice soft. "I'm just a simple woman who saw a child in pain. My little sister died because we couldn't afford medical care. I promised myself I would never ignore someone's suffering again. That's all I did. I paid attention. I cared." Her voice grew stronger. "Money is not evil. But when money becomes more important than people, that's when we lose our humanity." Oliver didn't need expensive machines. He needed someone to really look at him, to really see him. Every child deserves that. Every person deserves that. The room was silent. Then, slowly, people began to clap. Not the polite applause of a business conference, but real, heartfelt appreciation. In the days that followed, Rosa's story spread across the world. News outlets everywhere shared the tale of the housekeeper who succeeded where modern medicine failed. Some people praised her. Others questioned the medical system. Debates raged online about healthcare, about greed, about what really matters in healing. But Rosa didn't pay attention to any of it. She was too busy learning how to run a foundation, how to hire doctors who cared more about patients than profits, how to build something that would actually make a difference. Vincent worked beside her every day. The billionaire and the housekeeper, side by side, creating something beautiful from something broken. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the press conference, a woman arrived at the penthouse. She was middle-aged, professionally dressed, and she carried a folder. "Mr. Harrington," she said, "my name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I was one of the specialists who examined Oliver 4 years ago." Vincent's expression turned cold. "I remember. Your clinic billed me $80,000 for a 2-day evaluation that found nothing." Dr. Chen looked down, ashamed. "I know. I came to apologize. And to explain, though there's no excuse for what we did." Vincent crossed his arms. "I'm listening." "The hospital where I worked had quotas. Revenue targets. If we actually cured patients too quickly, we were reprimanded for not maximizing treatment potential. I knew it was wrong. I knew we were failing children. But I was afraid of losing my job, my license, my career." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "When I saw your press conference, saw what that woman did with a bobby pin, I realized I had become exactly what I swore never to be. A doctor who forgot why she became a doctor in the first place." Vincent's anger softened slightly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want to help. I want to work for your foundation. I don't care about the salary. I just want to actually heal children again. To remember what it feels like to put patients before profit." Vincent looked at Rosa, who had been listening quietly. She nodded. "Okay," Vincent said. "You can work with us. But understand this, if I ever see you put money before a child's well-being, you'll answer to her." He pointed at Rosa. "And trust me, that's scarier than answering to me." Dr. Chen smiled weakly. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Over the next few months, more doctors came forward. Some to apologize. Some to confess. Some to ask for a second chance to practice medicine the right way. The Oliver Foundation grew quickly. Within 6 months, they had clinics in 15 countries. They had examined over 5,000 children. They had restored hearing to 237 kids who had been told nothing could be done. And at the center of it all was Rosa, the woman who had started it all with a simple act of paying attention. But the story wasn't over yet. Because the biggest change wasn't happening in clinics or hospitals. It was happening in a penthouse in Dubai, in the heart of a billionaire who was learning what it truly meant to be wealthy. 6 months after that life-changing day, the penthouse felt like a completely different place. It was still luxurious, still beautiful, but now it was filled with something no interior designer could create. It was filled with life. Oliver's laughter echoed through the hallways. Real, audible laughter that made everyone smile. He attended a regular school now, making friends, playing sports, living the life of a normal 12-year-old boy. He still did speech therapy twice a week, but every day his words came easier, clearer, stronger. Rosa no longer lived in the tiny room behind the kitchen. Vincent had given her a proper suite in the penthouse, though she insisted it was too fancy for her. "I'm still just Rosa," she would say. But Vincent wouldn't hear it. "Your family," he always replied. And he meant it. The foundation was thriving beyond anyone's expectations. They received thousands of applications every week from parents desperate for help. And unlike the old system, they actually helped. Really helped. One evening, Vincent found Rosa sitting on the balcony, looking out at the city lights. She did this sometimes, lost in thought, a peaceful expression on her face. "Mind if I join you?" Vincent asked. Rosa smiled. "It's your balcony, Mr. Harrington." "Vincent," he corrected gently. "After everything, I think we can use first names." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The sounds of the city hummed below them, a symphony of life that Oliver could now hear and appreciate. "I got a message today," Rosa said quietly, "from a mother in Kenya. Her daughter was born deaf, and the local hospital said nothing could be done. Our foundation sent a team. They found an infection that was easily treatable. The girl can hear now." Vincent smiled. "That's wonderful." She sent me a video. The little girl singing for the first time. Rosa's eyes filled with happy tears. She was singing to her mother. Vincent felt his own throat tighten. "That's what it's all about, isn't it? Those moments." Rosa nodded. "When I was young and poor, I used to think rich people had everything figured out. That money solved all problems. But now I understand something different. Money is just a tool. What matters is what you build with it. You can build walls, or you can build bridges." "You taught me that," Vincent said softly. "I was building walls. Walls of protection, walls of control, walls of isolation. I thought if I could just control everything, pay for everything, I could fix everything. But I was wrong. He looked at her. You showed me that the most powerful thing we can do is simply pay attention. To really see the people around us. To care more about their hearts than their status. Rosa smiled gently. You were always a good father, Vincent. You were just lost. Sometimes we all get lost. And sometimes, Vincent added, God sends us exactly who we need to find our way back. At that moment, Oliver came running onto the balcony, his face excited. Dad! Rosa! Come see. I wrote a song on the piano. They followed him inside to the grand piano in the living room. 6 months ago, this piano was just decoration, something expensive that no one used. Now it was Oliver's favorite thing in the world. He sat down and began to play. The melody was simple, a little clumsy, but it was beautiful because it came from his heart. And then he sang. His voice was still learning, still rough around the edges, but every word was clear. Thank you for the silence that ended. Thank you for the voice that I found. Thank you for the people who love me. Thank you for my beautiful sound. Rosa covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Vincent put his arm around her shoulder, his own eyes wet. When Oliver finished, he turned around with a huge grin. I wrote it for you, Rosa. For everything you did. Rosa walked over and hugged him tight. You beautiful, beautiful boy. I'm so proud of you. I want to help other kids too, Oliver said. When I grow up, I want to work at the foundation. I want to help kids who feel alone like I did. Vincent knelt beside his son. You already help, Oliver. Just by being you. By showing people that miracles are possible when we don't give up. That night, after Oliver went to bed, Vincent and Rosa returned to the balcony. The stars were bright above Dubai, countless and beautiful. I've been thinking, Vincent said, about what real wealth means. I used to measure it in money, in properties, in companies. But now I realize I was poorest when I had the most money. And now? Rosa asked. Now I'm the richest I've ever been. Because I have my son's voice. I have purpose that matters. I have people in my life who see me as a person, not just a bank account. He looked at her. I have you as a friend. Rosa smiled warmly. Friendship is the greatest treasure. I want to tell you something, Vincent said. When you first came to work here, I barely noticed you. You were just another staff member. Someone to clean and stay invisible. I'm ashamed of that now. Don't be, Rosa said. You were hurting. Hurt people often can't see beyond their pain. But you saw me. You saw Oliver. You saw what we needed even when we couldn't see it ourselves. That's a gift, Rosa. A real gift. She shrugged modestly. I just paid attention. That's all any of us need to do. Pay attention to each other. Care about each other. Help when we can, without asking what's in it for us. Vincent nodded slowly. The world would be so different if everyone thought that way. Maybe, Rosa said. But we can't change the whole world. We can only change our corner of it. And maybe if enough people change their corners, eventually the whole world changes. They sat together as the night grew deeper, two people from completely different worlds who had found common ground in the most unexpected way. Inside, Oliver slept peacefully, dreaming in sound for the first time in his life. Dreaming of a future filled with music and voices and laughter. And somewhere in a small village in the Philippines, Rosa's mother received a letter with a check that would pay for her medical treatment and more. Enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life. Attached was a note that said simply, Your daughter saved my son. Now let me help save you. With gratitude, Vincent. The next morning, Rosa woke up early as she always did. But instead of putting on a cleaning uniform, she put on professional clothes. She had meetings today, doctors to interview, clinics to visit, children to help. As she walked through the penthouse, she passed Oliver's room. The door was open, and she could hear him talking on the phone with his new friends, making plans for the weekend. His voice was strong and happy. Vincent was in the kitchen making coffee, something he never did before. He was learning that doing things for yourself, for the people you love, was more valuable than always having someone else do it. Good morning, he said cheerfully. Coffee. Please, Rosa smiled. As they sat together at the kitchen table, something that would have been impossible 6 months ago, Vincent said, I got an email this morning. A journalist wants to write a book about our story. About you. Rosa shook her head. I don't need a book written about me. I know you don't need it. But maybe the world needs it. Maybe there's another father out there, too proud or too scared to ask for help. Maybe there's another housekeeper who notices something wrong but is afraid to speak up. Your story could save lives. Rosa thought about it, sipping her coffee slowly. If it helps even one child, then okay. Vincent smiled. That's exactly what I thought you'd say. Oliver came bouncing into the kitchen, his hair messy from sleep. What are we talking about? About how your Rosa is going to be famous, Vincent teased. Oliver laughed. She's already famous to me. She's my hero. Rosa reached over and ruffled his hair. And you're mine, brave boy. 3 months later, the book was published. It became an international bestseller, not because it was written by fancy writers, but because it was true. Because it touched something deep in people's hearts. Letters poured in from around the world. Parents thanking Rosa for giving them hope. Medical students saying they wanted to practice medicine the right way because of her example. Even other housekeepers and everyday workers writing to say that the story made them feel seen, made them feel like they mattered. One letter stood out among all the others. It came from a woman in Brazil. Dear Rosa, it read. I'm a cleaning lady at a hospital. Last week, I noticed a little boy who kept holding his stomach and crying, but the nurses were too busy to notice. Because of your story, I didn't stay quiet. I told the doctor something was wrong. They found appendicitis. The doctor said if we had waited one more day, the boy would have died. You taught me that my voice matters. Thank you. When Rosa read that letter aloud to Vincent and Oliver, they all cried. Happy tears. Tears that showed how one act of courage can ripple across the world in ways you never imagine. The foundation continued to grow. They opened clinics in over 50 countries. They trained doctors not just in medical skills, but in compassion, in seeing patients as people, not as numbers or sources of income. And every single clinic had a sign at the entrance that read, Here, we pay attention. Here, every person matters. On the 1-year anniversary of the day Rosa changed everything, Vincent organized a celebration. Not a fancy gala with celebrities and champagne, but a simple gathering in the penthouse with the people who mattered most. The doctors who had joined the foundation. The staff who had supported them. Children whose lives had been changed. And their families. Oliver, now 13 and thriving, gave a speech. His voice was confident now, clear and strong. A year ago, I lived in silence. Not just because I couldn't hear, but because I felt invisible. I felt like a problem that couldn't be solved. But Rosa saw me differently. She saw me as a person worth fighting for. She didn't have fancy degrees or expensive equipment. She just had love. And that was enough. He looked at Rosa, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Rosa taught us that miracles don't come from money or power. They come from people who care enough to pay attention, who care enough to act, who care enough to love. Everyone stood and applauded. Not polite applause, but the kind that comes from the soul. Later that evening, as the guests were leaving, a young girl approached Rosa shyly. She was about 8 years old, wearing a pretty yellow dress, and she had a small hearing aid in her ear. Miss Rosa, she said softly. Rosa knelt down to her level. Yes, sweetheart. I just got my hearing back last month. Your foundation helped me. And I wanted to say thank you. The little girl handed Rosa a drawing. It showed a woman with a big heart, surrounded by children holding hands. That's you, the girl explained. With all the kids you helped. We love you. Rosa hugged the little girl tight, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. This was why everything mattered. Not the fame, not the recognition, but these moments. These precious, beautiful moments. As the night came to an end and the penthouse grew quiet again, Vincent, Rosa, and Oliver stood on the balcony one more time, looking out at the city that had become their home. Do you ever think about how different life would be if you hadn't looked in my ear that day? Oliver asked Rosa. Rosa smiled. Sometimes. But I believe everything happens for a reason. I was meant to be here. I was meant to help you. Just like your father was meant to learn what truly matters. Vincent put his arms around both of them. I used to think I had everything. But I had nothing that mattered. Now I have everything that does. What do you mean? Oliver asked. Vincent looked at his son with pure love. I have you, healthy and happy. I have purpose that makes me want to wake up every morning. I have friends who see my heart, not my bank account. And I have the chance to make a real difference in the world. That's true wealth. Oliver nodded wisely. Rosa says that all the time. That love is the only treasure that grows when you give it away. She's right, Vincent said. She's always right. Rosa laughed softly. Not always. But I know this. We were all put on this earth to help each other. Rich or poor, educated or simple, we all have something to give. Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's just attention. Just caring. She looked up at the stars. My sister Lily used to say that every star in the sky is someone's prayer being answered. I think she was right. Every time we help someone, we become someone's answered prayer. Oliver reached for both their hands. Then we must be answering prayers every day. We try, Vincent said. We try. They stood there together, these three souls who had found each other in the most unexpected way. A billionaire who had learned humility, a housekeeper who had taught him wisdom, and a boy who had found his voice and changed the world. The city lights twinkled below them, each one representing a life, a story, a dream. And somewhere in that vast landscape of humanity, another Rosa was noticing something others missed. Another Vincent was learning to see beyond his wealth. Another Oliver was waiting for someone to truly see him. And that's how change happens. One person at a time. One act of kindness at a time. One moment of paying attention at a time.